never get this right. I'll go all directions before I get it up. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, councilors, new councilors, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rick Smith. I live at 41 Shoshone Drive in Newark Addition. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the stop sign at 126 in Auman. I spoke to you last year in February after the issue came up, and at the time I asked that the stop sign be taken down. And some people misunderstood that, but I actually said take it down. And the reason that we wanted it taken down was because it creates a problem in our neighborhood with cut-through traffic. And Sue was familiar with that and even suggested that taking the stop sign down might help. It may, but it led to another problem, and that's what concerns me here. We all make mistakes. I make more than my share, and I don't mind making mistakes because that's how I learn. But I'm afraid we've made a mistake here with this sign. We talk a lot about safety and about how safe Carmel is, and I agree with that. I think Carmel is one of the safest communities in the state of Indiana. And I think that you're all concerned about safety. I believe that. I said that the last time, and I still mean that. But the issue is, when we talk about this, it actually came up in June, a year earlier of 2014. And Bruce mentioned it in an article, a story that he wrote about 126th Street. And it was a remark about Eric, that Eric didn't care about his constituents because there wasn't a stop sign at this other location. And I, at the time, was aware of a letter that had come out in 2010 that I won't really go into, but I knew about it, and I thought, this doesn't sound right. So I reached out to the mayor, and I asked, what is your plan for safe traffic flow? And it's actually, there's a whole heading there under what is the mayor's plan for safe traffic flow for 126th Street. And he outlined a plan, and I felt pretty good about it. And if you go back and look at what I said last February, you'll find that this is, in fact, what I said. He said, I do understand there is a concern about children crossing at 126th. A crosswalk with a motion-activated pedestrian warning signal would solve that problem. I drive through this intersection at least 4 times most days. One day last summer was the only time I've seen a child crossing there in almost a year, and it was a teenager. That's pretty accurate. That's about all I see go across. When I mainly see teenagers go across that intersection is during school hours in the afternoon at 3 or so o'clock. And I notice they don't go across at the intersection. You're right. You wouldn't catch them on the camera because what they do is they go down that sidewalk a little ways, and then as soon as they see that they can sneak across, they cut across at a diagonal. So we really don't have a safe place to cross right now. But that's not the issue. The issue is that the mayor said that he was concerned that there was a lot of lost time and gas, air pollution from idling, not to mention the frustration generated as a result of the sign. He felt we'd be better served by removing it. I agree. Remove the sign. He said install a motion or pedestrian-activated pedestrian warning signal for the crosswalk and strictly enforce speeding in the area. Now I ask you, if you look at those 3 things, the first thing and the easiest thing to do would be to enforce speeding. That's simple. It's easy. It doesn't require any extra resources. We can do that. The next step before we would do that would be to take the crosswalk and get it put in before we take out the stop sign. We skipped that step. We took the stop sign out. Okay. I said when I was here in February, I said, if we take that stop sign out and we don't put anything else in, I said, it's not a question of if an accident's going to happen, it's a question of when. Okay, we took the stop sign out on February 5th, and 8 days later we had an accident. There are 13,145 cars that go through that intersection every day. That means that we had an accident within 106,000 cars going through that intersection. I want you to think about that. 106,000 cars was one accident. We have 100 times that many intersection crossings in this city on a daily basis. But let's just say we have 10,000 a day. 10 times that many. That would be 10 people a day injured. And I don't think anybody would consider that acceptable. That's not a safe city. So I asked you for your consideration. It seemed like we were initially in agreement. Now we have an accident. There's been some people that have and I don't mean negatively on this. I mean, I really don't, because it's been taken that way. But honestly, the fact is it's not unusual. The first thing that we think of is, well, you know, it wasn't the driver's fault. It wasn't. The kid made a dumb mistake. And a couple of people that have made comments, I just have to assume they don't have adolescent kids yet. Because for all of us that have, we know that sometimes their judgment is not exactly the best. Sometimes my judgment's not exactly the best, as many of you will attest. But for kids, it's really questionable. And they often take unacceptable risk levels. But pointing out that it's their fault and that the stop sign is not the cause is not correct. If the stop sign had been there, we wouldn't have had the accident. It was pointed out that they could take an alternate route or they could take transportation to school. The problem with transportation to school, this child was an athlete. I don't even want to call him a child. He's an adolescent. He's a young adult. He's embarrassed. I understand that. I can believe that. I would be if I'd been in a similar circumstance and had gotten all this attention. It's a sad situation for everybody. But I want you to reflect on what the situation would be if the 3-foot law we talk about, if this vehicle had been 3 feet closer to him. This meeting would be very different today. There would be a lot more people here. There would be a young man that we would be burying right now as we stand here. I want you to think about that. We put the 3 feet law in effect. Now, Bruce and I went around a little bit about that at the time because I felt like the 3-foot law was kind of tough to enforce. Because how do you know if I'm 34 or 38 inches from somebody? And I used to bicycle. I'm a motorcyclist now, a little bit more than a bicyclist when I can keep my balance. But the fact of the matter is that I feel like that 3 feet is probably not adequate in some circumstances. And I think an officer should use his discretion and cite you for reckless driving if you're driving recklessly. I think that's common sense. So anyhow, politics, did they trump safety? I ask you that. The 2010 memo I mentioned, in 2010 we knew we had an issue with that stop sign. In 2010 we could have took the stop sign out. In 2010 we didn't have City Center. In 2010 we didn't have the Palladium. In 2010 we didn't have construction going on 126th Street like we do right now. All those things have come since 2010. 2010, DLZ Engineering did a sightline study. Now, Aaron just showed you some information on a sightline study now. But 2010, we did that sightline study, and nothing was heard about it until Sue's presentation in 2015, in 2014, in the fall of 2014. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. Apologize for that. That was a big presentation. We had Bobby Leonard here. The media packed the house. We had people and lots of supporters. It was almost a pep rally. There was a social media blitz that followed, Facebook, Twitter, news. Basically, if you didn't follow the plan, you weren't looked on very positively. I didn't have a problem with the plan, but I wanted to see some adjustment made. Election day. Candidate actually out there holding a sign that said, "This sign must go, this stop sign must go," and had 2 of their campaign posters there. That was at a time when people were driving in and out to the polls and that were going in and out of work, that were going to vote. And we made it look like that the stop sign was the issue. The issue was safety. It is not the stop sign. Did politics trump safety? Well, I'd have to say it trumped common sense. If it was a good idea in 2010, and I won't say that it wasn't, why did we let 20 million cars stop in 5 years? 13,145 cars a day. Take it times 5.5 years, you'll come up with almost 20 million stops. How many pairs of brakes did we go through at that intersection, just stopping and starting? How much frustration, wasted gas, pollution, all of those things that we didn't want. I ask that we please reconsider this. The signs should be destroyed, but we need to put something else up there. I suggested at the time, and Councilor Ryder was even right there with me, that this would solve 99.9% of the problem. We put a light there. We had a light in the street department. We put a light there. It has flashing yellow all the hours except for during rush hour. It's a flashing red to Auman so that it's always a stop sign. At rush hour, for 1 hour a day, 2 times a day, it goes to a 90-second delay. No right turn on red. That'll cut down all the cut-through traffic. It'll be faster to go around the lights and go through the intersection. It'll get the cars out of our neighborhood, and it will eliminate all of the traffic problems that we have for people getting across that intersection. It only runs 2 hours a day. The rest of the time it runs yellow. Okay? That eliminates the problem for everybody. I ask you, please, don't let politics trump this. This is an important safety issue. 3 more feet, and this would be a very, very different meeting. Thank you for your time and attention.
Next speaker is